when it comes to running my agency, I have learned 100 times more from the courses I've bought, which haven't really been that much, and the people I surround myself with, literally like than a college degree. The college degree when it comes to running my agency is absolutely useless.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Truth Talk podcast. Today I'm joined with Caleb. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the people that might not know you.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Alex, for having me on the show here. My name is Caleb. I am the founder of Torify. We are a marketing agency. We primarily work in the home service space, and I've also got a few real estate properties as well. And I'm 25 years old, and I've been in business for kind of a long time. The agency's young. I've tried and failed so many different things, but I ended up landing on the agency as the one that's worked so far. So that's me.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you for coming on as well. It's
Yeah.
exciting to have you on. So, I guess with business, what was your first, business endeavor to kind of get into business?
Okay, so I remember there were so many, like when I was young, I kind of always wanted to have my own business, you know.
Hmm.
I was about 16 years old, and I was kind of going through this whole phase of like, I want to be better. I started working out, being healthy. Like, I actually like I remember the specific conversation. Um I was I was at Wendy's with my mom, and I was eating like a chicken sandwich, and we were talking about college, and she's basically like, like, what do you want to do with your life? And I kind of I wanted to go. I grew up in Michigan, so I was like, oh, I wanted to go to the University of Michigan. That was my goal. And then I ended up going to, or my goal changed to Michigan State. That was like my big goal. My mom went there. I wanted to go there, and that was kind of my whole like introduction to like, wow, like if I want to do something, like I got to like reinvent myself. So, um, coming along with that. By the way, I failed that goal. I never ended up making it in.
Hmm.
But I started reading a lot of books and things like that. And one of the first business books I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, like most people. Um, and long story short, I had a couple of eureka moments reading that book, and like I started getting obsessed with business. And I did what a lot of people did. I started buying and selling stuff. I was going to thrift stores, selling stuff on eBay, and selling whatever I could around the house, things like that. And I guess that was my first real like side business or introduction into business. Like that's how I got started. It's a very, I'm sure you've probably heard some variation of that story before, right?
Well, I mean, I've heard different ones. I haven't really heard like reselling. I mean, I know a lot of people at like in my personal life, like at school and that sort of thing, that do that, especially with like sneakers. And I know that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
But not necessarily that, like with thrift stores and all that. So that's really interesting. Did you actually end up going to college or no?
Yeah, so I went to Grand Valley State University in Michigan, in like the Grand Rapids area. I studied accounting and finance. I still um it was still the goal to have my own business, but I thought that having a degree in accounting could at least like somewhat provide me with some value.
Mhm.
I think accounting is probably the best business degree you can get. Things like marketing and stuff, I feel like they just change so much that like,
Yeah.
you know, I
Espe-
mean, I do marketing for a living. That's what puts food on the table, and none of anything I do has ever been taught in any of my marketing classes. Um,
and I mean, especially if you're doing like social medias and anything like
yeah,
Facebook,
yeah,
ad rules change,
yeah, literally
like
like
yeah,
we. So.
yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was my mom's a CPA, so I kind of followed in her footsteps. I did not get my CPA, but I thought it was at least like a somewhat logical thing to do to have that knowledge. Um, I After college, I did end up getting a job I got a job at an accounting firm, and
Mhm.
then I was basically there for about 6 months. I guess long story short, so after you know, from 16 and on, I tried and failed a bunch of different businesses. I ended up selling on Amazon. I was doing food and beverages and stuff like that. I ended up getting kicked off of Amazon, so I had to shut that down.
What
Um,
happened?
I was selling products that were encased in glass, like sauces and things like that. And I had like a high number of breakage because, it was glass and I
Oh,
was putting it.
yeah.
And then that's basically what happened.
I
Um,
see.
and then so that business ended up going under. I tried to start a supplement company. That didn't work out. Um, there was a couple other ones. Oh, I tried to start a sunglasses, uh, like a sunglasses drop shipping store. That didn't
Yeah.
work. Um, there was a couple other things. I tried to be a YouTuber, and that didn't end up working either. But basically, here's kind of the post college story. So like all throughout college, I had like a YouTube channel, and I still have the YouTube channel. But I had my YouTube channel, Cayleb Pletos, that I would post a lot of like automotive content and things like that. And I wanted to be like a YouTuber. Um, and I tried that for a very long time. And it
Yeah.
got to a point where I was spending a ton of money on it and I really wasn't getting like any return. So I ended up pivoting, and that's when I pivoted into the agency model. So about, second half of 2022, I start doing a lot of this thinking. I'm like, all right, like I got to do something. I had this marketing knowledge of running a YouTube channel. It's relevant. It's not the same, but like you
Close.
can transfer over. It's close. It's not like I'm going from running a YouTube channel to fighting in a war. They're
Yeah.
relatively similar. Um, so it was a relatively, I don't want to say easy transition, but like, uh, anyways, I was having all these thoughts. So I started the agency in December of 22. And then the first week of 23, I lost my job at the accounting firm. I was fired. I was not a good employee, like entrepreneurs never really are. But that was pretty crazy because I was like, it was 2 weeks into the year. I had this brand new agency. I had zero clients. I had no money. So it was like, all right, like I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to go find another job because I was scared. But another part of me was like, Caleb, like you have to like this
Try.
agency has to work.
Yeah.
So I basically spent all my time getting the agency up and running. Um, I didn't sign my first client until I remember. I did a bunch of outreach at first. I reached out to 3,500 people before I got my
Wow.
first client. And it was like a very, very small client. It was like $200 a month. Um, so
Interesting.
it was about a month and a half later that I got my first client. And then slowly, ever so slowly, I started to get clients enough that I could support myself. And now we've got about 22 clients. And I've got a couple rentals as well that I bought. So that's relatively the story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And one thing with that is like, do you feel that, I guess the fact that you had to make it, right? Like there was like this like urgency to it. Do you feel like that played a role in your success?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
I I debated like I didn't love the career I had. I was just kind of like a bean counter behind the computer working on Excel all day. And I that's not really me.
yeah,
And I didn't want that to be me. But I made like $63,000 a year. So it was like an okay salary, but definitely wasn't great.
yeah.
Um it's about 5 grand-ish a month. Um, so, before taxes. So it was enough that it would keep me there that I didn't want to leave. And I was kind of, learning about the agency on the side, taking courses, learning and stuff like that. But it wasn't like, as much as I hate to say it, like I don't think I would be here if I didn't get fired.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And one thing with like kind of my audience and the people that kind of watch me, at least I think I always talk a lot about, like college and decision making like for young entrepreneurs or people who want to start their own business, right? And a lot of times there's multiple paths, right? Like I feel like a lot of times people get locked into this like, oh, I have to go to college or oh, I don't want to go to college. I want to do this business, right? Like I feel like there's always different perspectives to look at it. Do you feel that, I guess, going to college was something that helped you and kind of guided you in the right direction? Or do you feel like at 18 you could have been able to start your own agency and run it like you do now?
Um, so realistically, I don't think that a college degree is worth it. Especially, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go into a large amount of debt for it. I would definitely not do that. I do not think that the value you're getting, it depends on your degree, but I don't think that the
Yeah.
value that you're getting is there. Um, if you're going to be an engineer, if you're going to be a doctor or something like that, yeah,
Yeah, and a lot of times it's very I don't want to say that like, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that, right? Because there's so many nuances, so many variables, so many things that go into that equation that you can't just say, oh, do this or do that, right? Like if you want to be a doctor, go to school, right? If you want to be a lawyer, right? Like you have to go to school, right? So it depends, right?
yeah. So a degree is probably, let's say you're going to spend 60, $80,000 on a degree. When it comes to running my agency, I have learned 100 times more from the courses I've bought, which haven't really been that much, and the people I surround myself with, literally like than a college degree. The college degree, when it comes to running my agency, is absolutely useless. Um, you know, Going to college, the experience of moving away, growing up, making new friends, making a lot of mistakes, like that helped me out a lot. I grew so much in college. I grew up, I learned a lot of responsibilities. I was a responsible kid at 18 before I left, but it was just different. Um,
Yeah.
so I do think that there is a lot of benefit of the act of going away to school. But I think that the degree itself is pretty much useless. And
Mm,
I mean, I kind of just honestly just like skated by in college. I barely graduated. Like
yeah.
I was not a model student, when it comes to school. Um, but there is value to it, but pound for pound, I don't think it's at least in my world, I don't need it.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess moving back to the conversation about the agency and kind of where you are, I guess let's go back to when you first started the agency, right? So you
Yeah.
said you reached out to how many people before you got that first client?
3,500 people.
Wow. And was that all via DMs, cold calling, like just a mix?
I would probably say about 1,500 of them were emails. There was probably about
Emails.
another 1,500-ish were DMs. And then there was a couple different strategies that I tried.
Hmm.
One strategy I did was I applied to jobs on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
I applied to them as an agency. So I just said like, hey, listen, you don't need to hire a marketing guy. You can hire my company for X, Y, and Z reason. And I've actually gotten clients that way. So
Hmm.
that was another thing I did. And there might have been one more, but I didn't really do too much cold calling. Um, uh, and then I started making content. And now like I'll pretty much 95% of my leads come from content.
Mm. So all inbound leads from people like, oh, I saw your video, and they kind of come in like that. Is that mostly?
Yes. So,
So
oh, go ahead.
no, no, you can go ahead. I'll ask you after.
Yeah. So basically, the leads will come in. Like I'll make a video how I run Facebook ads, and use Go High Level for a painting company, and I will literally tell people, hey, this is exactly how we do it. You can watch this video. We provide you a lot of value. You can do this for your company. I give giving you all the steps, or you could just hire us to do it, and we'll take care of everything.
Yeah.
Um, and that has allowed us to, lead with value. People we literally just give, 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 and then ask. And it's not even a hard ask. It's like, hey, listen, like you can do this on your own if you want, but if you want to save time and probably be more successful, we can do it for you. Um,
Yeah.
so it's helped to educate a lot of people, and also that has been a good source of clients for us. We tell people how we do it. We just give client examples, failures, successes, and just try to document the process.
And do you feel like having that brand, I guess, has helped you just in terms of like getting not just like inbound leads, but when you do get someone on the call, having that channel, does that give you, I guess, more validity or authority to kind of
Yes,
be like,
absolutely.
mhm.
Yeah.
And do you recommend that to like an agency that I guess is just starting out, right? Is that something that you would consider doing?
So it's definitely a long-term strategy. It is content's a slow burn. However, uh, it is. Yes, I would recommend doing it, definitely. So when you're first starting off, it's free. You don't need to do anything. What we do is we actually kind of boost up our content with paid ads. So like for example, if a video is doing well, we'll put ad spend behind it. Um,
Hmm.
we are running Facebook ads as well, to like a booked call funnel thing.
Yeah.
Um, but Yes, it works. There are videos that I made a year ago that I'm still booking meetings from. Realistically, I probably sign like 2 to 3 clients a month from content.
Yeah.
That's kind of conservative. I think this last month it was more like 5.
Yeah, and just for the people that like haven't seen this YouTube channel, Caleb's YouTube channel will be in the description of the video with all the social medias and everything, so you guys can go check out all of his content and a lot of the cool stuff that he's doing at his agency. So that's definitely something worth checking out. But going back to the agency, what do you feel like is a lesson that you took away from like all that outreach that you did that you didn't really get much results from?
Um, so I personally am not a big fan of cold outreach.
Mm,
I think that if you build a system that is bringing you leads, it's going to be so much easier, especially down the line. The leads that I get from my content are so much easier to convert.
close. Yeah.
Um, our conversion rate at this point in time is like 35%. And it might be more like 30, but yeah, it's about 35% right now, which is it makes it a lot easier on content. They already know who you are, they already trust you. I've literally had people say like, "Hey man, I used to watch your videos and now we're working together. Like this is really cool." Like it imagine if you gave somebody hours and hours and hours of value before they got on the phone with you. Like they'd love you, you know? Um so with cold outreach, yeah, you have to do it at first, and it sucks. But it is, I mean, especially with content, you are getting people who, they trust you. It's a lot easier. And you can put, I I do something as well called like a hybrid funnel where basically I've got all the content on my Instagram and then I run ads to Instagram as well. So it's like you're boosting content with paid ads. So it's kind of like does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, I've seen those as well before where you, I guess, boost posts and YouTube, I mean, past year or so implemented the ads feature as well, right? Or where you basically can pay for views, right? And that's kind of another feature that you're using as well, or
So kind of, yes. So we have like a full like, Facebook ads campaign and stuff going on, but
Mhm.
the idea is that now that our content we know converts, we want to get more people to see it in whatever, by however necessary. So in other words, like if I'm only really getting like 10 or so, yeah, probably about 10 or so meetings a month from
Mhm.
content. If we just
Yeah.
get more people to see it, we know they like it, we know they work, we just got to get more people to see it now. So, if I can get an extra 10,000 people to subscribe to my channel, I know that at least some of those people are going to become meetings and, stick around.
And how do you know that the targeting is working properly, right? Like, because a lot of times people can run ads, and this is something I've seen with ads as well, is like people run campaigns and they're looking for this specific audience and they get this audience, right? So how do you, I guess, target that for an agency?
So, okay, so it is kind of the best way to manage like targeting is with a meta campaign, is with a
Mhm.
Facebook and
Yeah.
Instagram ads campaign. If you run them to like we have one that we booked call funnel where basically we run ads, there's me in front of the camera that says, "Hey, we can do this for your company, blah blah blah." I'm sure you guys all see them all the time. Um, they go to a funnel, they watch a video, and if they like what they see, they book a call. Um, we can track every little bit of that. How
Mhm.
many people are booking appointments, things like that. When it comes to uh sending people to content, so what I mean by that is like if I want to just get more people on my Instagram and then have them convert from there, or get more people on my YouTube channel and have them convert from there, I it is a little harder to track, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of, you know, honestly, I am of the opinion that like if it just has to work one time to make sense. If I spend $1,000 on ads, for YouTube, I probably expect to get, over 1,000 subscribers. From that, uh, I mean, I'm confident that at least one of those people is going to turn into a client, and that client will pay me every single month, probably close to $1,000. So,
Yeah.
like,
And that's recurring, right? So that's every month
yeah,
you're
that's
getting
that
that
that's
paycheck.
recurring. So, like you have to be interested in the big picture, like if you I am just now to the point where like I'm starting to feel all of the invisible hands that have been moving, word of mouth, things like that. Like, um, at first it feels silly, doing all this outreach, making all these videos and all this stuff. But like, as it because when it compounds in the future and then it really does snowball, you'll really notice it.
Yeah, and I know we talked a little bit before the podcast. It's just you and one other person running this agency, right?
So there's myself. We
Uh-huh.
have a media buyer. We do have an editor. He takes care of all of the content. So like editing
Okay.
the content, posting, doing the shorts, all that stuff. We do also have a copywriter, but he's like part-time. So more like when we need him, depending on the project.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, full-time it is just me and one other person that manage all the clients. Um, we're getting to the point where we need more people.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where that person's going to be, um, but I'm kind of feeling the pains of not having all the systems in place. I don't think we have as good of a structure as we should. I don't think we have as good of operations as we should.
Mm.
And I think we need a better team,
Yeah.
or just more of them. Like right now, what happens is when we get a new client in, I will you know, I'll do all the onboarding. I'll get all the information. I will send it off to my media buyer and just say like, hey, build this. He builds all the go high level. He builds all the ads and all that stuff like we know how to do. I look over everything, talk to the client and then handle, if there are any problems that arise. But right now, the big problem that we're having is I think I need somebody to do client communications for me, like a second manager, a client success manager or something,
Mm.
because it's kind of getting to the point where like clients will, they need someone to talk to that isn't me because I'm getting pulled away so like, you know,
Constantly.
10 different times a day. And they're usually just like silly things like, hey, can you adjust this form? Hey, can you do this? Like, it's not like I don't need to be doing that and I shouldn't be doing that. Like, I got to focus on growing the company and getting more clients, not like a small tweak or a small question. Um, so I definitely need somebody to handle that, I think. Um, we're in kind of a unique spot. So like the agency, I expect we're about 7 days out from the month here. We'll probably round out at about 15,000 this month.
Mm.
And then the rentals will bring in about 3,500. So basically we're at about like 18,000 this month. Which is like okay, but
Yeah.
not great compared to a lot of other people you've had on the show. So
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because I like to see all the different perspectives of how people are doing certain things, right? Because, for one person, this is the way to do. For another person, like you
yeah.
said, like maybe cold outreach isn't the best, but a lot of people make a lot of money off cold outreach, right? Cold
Yeah,
calling.
they
So,
do. I'm not good at it. So
yeah, I mean, and it's a skill, right?
yeah.
So it's definitely kind of like what you prioritize and what you put your time into, right? And as a young entrepreneur, like especially, I mean, there's a big age gap because I mean I'm 17 years old and you're 25, right? So there is a bit of a gap here, but like in terms of like what I think the best use of time for me would be and what the best use of time for like you, right? Because for me, especially as a young entrepreneur, it's really more focused about like learning and just getting soaking in as much knowledge as I can from, speaking to individuals like yourself, right? Or being a part of a business and kind of learning it rather than having to put out those fires like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously, I mean, I've also tried like starting my own business and everything, and immediately I noticed like, oh, I have to talk to this guy, and then I'm talking to this client over here, and it's like I'm dealing with these 15 different things at once, and my phone's always I have 15 messages on my phone at all times, right? So it's like it really it as a young entrepreneur, I don't think that is the best way to be able to focus on what you're trying to learn, I guess. I mean, would you agree with that, or do you feel like there's something that is a bit different?
Yeah, so I think general rule, you should always be replacing yourself.
Mm,
Um, Even if somebody can do like 90% as good of a job as you probably shouldn't be the one doing it. You have to steer the ship, because no one else is going to do it. Um, putting people in place like or buying things that you shouldn't be doing. Like at a certain point, you will like I use a meal prep service. I don't cook my food.
yeah.
I never have to worry about it. It's always healthy. It's always fresh. I just heat it up and we're good to go. That saves me hours every week. Or like outsourcing certain things in your life so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. Free up your headspace for what's important, which is running the business. I guess when it comes to like replacing yourself, um, you can't do it right away, but at a certain point, you will need to because you don't want to be that
So
guy
much.
that is run by his business, is what I'm getting at here. So it is a constant fight to do that. And you have to always have that in your mind because it's so easy to fall into that trap of like, oh, I'll just do this, I'll do everything. And then you become the business owner that works, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and doesn't have anything to show for it because he's stuck in the same spot. That's a constant fight. I feel like I didn't answer your question. I feel like I kind of went off on a little tangent there.
It's
Um,
fine.
um, can you
Yeah, yeah, sure. So what I was asking is, as a young entrepreneur, do you feel like, I guess I'll simplify it a little bit, but do you feel like it's a good move to go ahead and start your own business rather than, I guess, sitting down and learning a skill like maybe sales or maybe like marketing, learning how to craft, editing, whatever that skill is? Because, well, I guess, what do you feel is the right move for a young entrepreneur looking to eventually start their own business like yourself?
Yeah, so I took about 3 to 6 months in that learning phase that you talked about,
Mhm.
between, like, hey, I should stop creating content like for my YouTube channel. I should stop trying to be a YouTuber and I should do something different. I need to pivot. This isn't working for me. And I guess that's kind of why I chose a lot of the outreach strategies that I do because I have that. I'm so comfortable behind the camera, editing, making videos and stuff. That was just kind of a natural thing for me,
Yeah,
when it comes to running the business. But I took about 3 to 6 months, between, hey, I really think I should change to like, I'm running my agency. Um, Take your time in deciding, make like lay out all your options. Do I want to be a drop shipper? Do I want to have a Shopify store? Do I want to do this, that, or the other thing, whatever. Lay out all your options, take time going through them. What type of life do you want to live? Where do you want to live? How much money do you want to have? What like have these things in your mind but don't like just wait forever. Like if it's 6 months and you've been thinking about an idea, like you really need to like take action. I didn't know what service I was going to do when I started my agency. I didn't know who I was going to service when I started my agency. I didn't know a lot of things. But you learn as you go, and you kind of, I'm sure my agency will look so much different in 4 years, you know. Um,
yeah.
but at a certain point, action is going to be the only thing that's going to move the needle forward. Yes, learn, take courses, do all that, read books. I've done all that too. I've probably at this point probably read around 50 business books and taken maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 full-fledged courses.
Mm.
Um, and those have brought me a lot of knowledge. And there's things that I've learned from my other businesses that I brought into the agency, things that I did or didn't like. Um,
Yeah.
but at a certain point, yeah, thinking about it is not going to get you to having a business.
Yeah, and there was that kind of brings up an interesting point because there was a video, I believe it was the other guy that has a podcast. I think it was Chris Williamson. Not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, he's got the buzzed head and he's
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. A video I saw about him, and he's like, a lot of people spend time thinking about that idyllic future, right? And
yeah.
nobody really takes that action, right? And it's this constant, you know, cycle of like every like, oh, now I'm waiting for summer. Oh, now whenever school starts. Oh, now it's when school ends. Oh, now it's in, and it's like constantly like, oh, I'll start here. I'll do this then. And it's like at some point you just kind of have to take that and run with it, right? Like kind of take an idea, go with it, right? How do you feel like you were able to come to the conclusion that an agency was the best way for you to move forward?
So I think that an agency or a online service business, which is basically what an agency is, like
Yeah.
any sort of online service business, if you're a coach, if you're something like that, um, for a couple of reasons. Time freedom. You can outsource things. You can scale the business. It's not. Yeah, it's hard to scale, but it's not like impossible. Location freedom. I can do this all from a laptop. I have an office. I have that. I like to work here, so I'm away from my place. I can do what I want. But you know, I can also leave. Like, I travel back and forth from New York to Michigan a lot. I got family there, and I can do that. I'm not stuck in
Yeah.
one town forever. And also, obviously, there's the money. Like, it is a great way to get to a, you know, I can realistically see this company, like, I don't want to say easily, but like I can see the path to 100,000 a month. Like, I can see relatively the next steps that we need to take. The goal for the agency this year is, or I guess my general goal this year is I want to make 25,000 a month in the agency, and I want 5 rental properties. Um 25, 5 at 25 years old. That's it. Um
Yeah.
and I think that's super doable. We're already at 15 and 2. Um, so, but once we get to 25, I will be able to see like, okay, like I see where 100,000 a month is. There's definitely some key players you need to put in place, but like, it seemed like a very realistic path to 100,000 a month. And I think this is a very realistic and a very practical thing, especially for me, based on the skills I had, based on the things I thought I was good at, and things like that.
Yeah. And I just had a quick question about the agency. Are you doing the sales and everything, or do you have someone that handles that as well?
I do the sales right now.
Mhm.
So eventually I'll have a salesperson, but
Yeah.
right now it's me. I do think that because I am the one who makes all the content, it really helps.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
definitely. Because a lot of people will see that video and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's him from the video," right? I'm speaking to him,
yeah,
right? It makes
yeah.
it easier
So
to relate.
it does make it a lot easier to relate. I think so. Kind of like the next steps plan here is I really need to master my operations for service delivery. That needs to be running like a T so that I can go hop over more so to the outreach side and that be my main focus. I want to be able to give, a CMO or a head of service delivery something, a stack of 5 new clients and they get managed properly. Um, because right now I'm the only one that takes care of acquisition, so I got to
Yeah.
focus a little bit more on content, a little bit more on sales, maybe putting some salespeople in our own ads, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense, right? Especially when you're starting and you are making most of your clients from content. It makes sense that you be on those calls and everything. Do you feel like, especially like younger and I mean, how long has this business been going for? Is
About a
it
year and a half.
year and a half, right? So, because you said 2023 was like the main year where it kind of like
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
started going and everything. In your, I guess, you know, time as an agency owner, do you feel like where do you feel like you spend most of your time doing? What do you feel like you spend most of your time doing?
So right now I spend about 70% of my time either onboarding new clients, like in terms of like getting them all built out, things like that, or solving service delivery related problems, which is
Mhm.
not how it should be. It should
Yeah,
be more like 30% or 20%. So, um, you know, we have had a lot of rapid growth recently, which is kind of like we're feeling those growing pains. But yeah, so that's why I'm like, okay, we need to figure this out.
yeah,
Um, because yeah, I mean, it is relatively easy to like make content and things like that just because I have an editor, he does all that stuff. So that makes it really easy. But for the most part, like I wouldn't feel comfortable like, launching a brand new paid ads funnel or something right now, just because our service delivery is not to the T that it needs to be. Like things get done, but right now, because of this, the influx of clients, people maybe it takes a little while for me to respond, or like things take a little extra day to get done. Just it shouldn't be that way. Things should be, clean cut, fast, and efficient.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like with especially when you're first starting out, right? It seems like the systems that you put in place, you kind of, I don't want to say, because I don't know, but like I don't want to say cutting corners, right? But like you kind of create it to in a sense like, oh, I can take care of that for a little bit, right? Like I can take care of managing this client, right? And then it gets to a point where, oh wait, now I'm managing like 15 clients, and now like I have to talk to all these people, and it could not just be with clients, right? It could be with other things as well. Like I'll put together the ad campaign, or we're not going to outsource this one. I'll take care of it, right? And it's kind of this cycle, right? Do, do you feel like that's kind of what's been going on with it, or
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm actively aware of it, and it's not
yeah,
like over my head. Most people they get stuck in this position, and that's like, in my head, I'm like, don't get stuck there.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, you're right. You just have to be aware of like what should be your responsibility and what shouldn't. Um, So ideally, if I can get somebody, which I will, we're gonna start hiring here shortly. You know, somebody to take care of all the little problems, help my media buyer because he's overloaded, and just make sure that the service delivery runs smoothly. That would free up so much time. Like even right now, I get a report on Monday and Thursday from my media buyer that of all the different clients that we have, all the different accounts, how they're doing, if it's good or bad or whatever. So that I can make the decision like, hey, fix this client, hey, do this. And like those reports are starting to come in a little late and things like that. So like that's not okay. Um, and he's overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed. So basically we just need to grow the team. And I mean, that's kind of how it works. Like you swell up, you get really busy, and then you're like, okay, let's hire on more people. And then you grow again, and you hire on more people. You hire as you grow, kind of thing.
Yeah. I had another question for you. If you were a young entrepreneur and you kind of wanted to start your own agency, you don't really know kind of where to go, kind of what to do, what advice, what tips would you give to someone who's first starting their own agency or they're looking to get into business?
So most of the time you will have no idea what you're doing. Um, and I guess there's a Steve Jobs quote that I really like is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. So you literally had like most of the time when I did things like, making content or like I literally had no idea that it was going to work to get
Yeah.
clients. Um, so it only makes sense when you look back. Um, you just have to do it and you have to push forward and you will learn as you go. It's going to be scary. It's going to be challenging. Like, sales for me, I was terrified, when I first started. I was on sales calls like, like please use my business.
Yeah.
But uh now I'm so much better because I've done it hundreds of times. So like um you really do learn as you go, and it gets so much easier once you start doing it. Pay attention to your business. Um, Always, focus on growth. Don't get caught in, just running your business or being ran by your business, be the one in control. Um, a true business, you should be able to leave for a year and come back, and it was bigger than when you left it. Um, I'm not there yet, but that should be the goal.
Yeah. And one thing that, we talked a little bit about it earlier in the podcast, but I kind of want to bring it back. You know, when you are first starting it out, it is kind of difficult to find out what you want to do, right? And like you said, you got into drop shipping, you got into, eventually the agency space, but you had all these different things that you were doing, like the thrifting and all that stuff that you were doing. What do you feel like, I guess, how do you find that thing that you want to do? Do you think it's just by trying it out and eventually you stumble across it?
Um, I think, okay, so I am not a big fan of the follow your passion thing.
Hmm.
So when I started my YouTube channel, like my first one that I wanted to be a YouTuber on, I wanted to be an automotive YouTuber. Okay, I love cars. I grew up in Detroit. Everybody I knew worked for the auto industry. That was just kind of our thing. And I started this YouTube channel around something I really liked, and it ended up not being successful. I ended up hating cars because it was like I made the thing I liked at my job. So
Yeah.
I actually do really enjoy having that separation of job and passion. Um, so I guess whatever that thing is, or whatever interests you, drop shipping, agency, uh, real estate, whatever. I think you should look a little bit at what you want your life to look like. How much free time do you want to have? How much money do you want to have? All of those questions you should be able to relate back to the thing you're starting. Um, at this point in time, like sometimes clients will call me on Sunday or in the middle of the night or whatever, which you have to be okay with that if you have an agency. You obviously, we want to scale out of that and not have that be the forever. But think about what you want your life to look like, and also, just take a good long hard look at the thing you think you want to do, and give it a shot. Give it a try, give it a shot. You're not gonna know until you do it.
Yeah. one thing that I always ask a lot of the guests on the, or I've always asked the question on the podcast is, um, would you rather follow your passion or kind of work for whatever makes the most money or gets you closer to I guess the life that you want to live, right? And a lot of times that people give me that answer of like, oh, I wouldn't want to make my passion my job because then it's a job, right? And then other times people are like, oh, well, I want to, work with my passion because I want to be around it all the time or whatever it is, right? And there's no, I guess, correct answer, right? It's subjective. But it's really interesting that you kind of have that perspective, like do whatever makes your life what you want it to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I love business. I freaking love it. It's a game. It is the best game in the world. And I want to play and I want to win. I want to play for the rest of my life. Um, it is business is what I love. If I was making, a good amount of money having a Shopify store, I would do that. And
Yeah.
I would probably love it. If I had a certain brand or if I had this or whatever, I would probably really like it. I love the agency. I love what I do. That doesn't mean I don't like it just because it's not my passion.
Right.
Like I really, really do enjoy it. I can work countless hours without even thinking about it. But it's not like if you were to ask me like what I do for fun, like yeah, I do kind of find the agency fun, but it's not like um I don't know if I call this like a passion activity, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Like
Yeah,
what the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm wearing a soccer jersey, so that's why I say
yeah,
it. But like a lot of soccer players, especially professionals, they come out and they're like, "Oh, I don't like what I don't want to play soccer anymore. I don't want to do it. I'm getting paid. I do it every day. You know what I mean?" And it's like that's really interesting to me because it's like you probably grew up your whole life playing it, and you loved it so much at that point that when you get to 35 and you retire or however old you are, it's like, oh wait, now I'm burnt out, right? So I
yeah,
guess that's one thing that comes with following your passion sometimes is sometimes it doesn't become your passion anymore, right? And
yeah,
that could suck, right?
yeah. That definitely happened to me at one point and I didn't like it.
Yeah. So is there anything in particular that I guess you wanted to talk to the audience about? Any advice, any ideas you would have for young entrepreneurs who are looking to get into the game, who are looking to start their own business, start their own agency? Uh, any advice?
Well, a lot of the things that you hear out there, a lot of the standard advice that is, surround yourself with good people, learn, don't give up, just do it, like all that kind of stuff. It's all true. Um,
Mm,
if you focus on all of those things, like I promise that you will get whatever you want.
mm.
It's gonna be way harder than you ever would have thought. And it's gonna be it's gonna be like stressful at times. You will be very anxious, exhausted. You will have no idea if you're doing it right. But if you keep pushing forward, eventually you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and another thing is, and this is something that I saw on another someone else's I think it was a podcast. It was the number one word that they use in marketing is easy, right? So everyone wants it to be easy, everyone wants it to come fast, but a lot of
Yeah.
times it's that hard work. They brand it as easy, but it is very difficult work, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of the time that it takes, the effort, the not being able to go out with your friends and you kind of have to sit here and maybe send a few DMs or do some cold calls, right? It's
Yeah.
like that time that you're putting in, that's where the business is built, right? That's where the spine of the business is.
Yes.
Um, and I feel like a lot of people, especially younger people, they feel like they see the drop shipping and they just see that, the Stripe accounts with the $10,000 in it, and they're like, oh, well, I can do that, you know what I mean? But they don't see the hours that going behind it. And I know it's cliche to say it like that, right? But it really is true, right? Speaking to entrepreneur after entrepreneur, I hear the same things, right? So it's interesting to hear that you also have that take as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give anybody like the wrong impression. Like I still have no idea what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
I every single day, like I mean, I don't want to pretend like I'm up here like I have everything all figured out. Like I am still awestruck at how stupid I am, like almost daily. But that is, don't get arrogant. Don't get, to that point where you think you know everything because that's probably when you'll be proven wrong. You I'm still so young in the journey. You're still so young in the journey. Like there is, we're not even at that level yet. Like
Yeah,
the
we're not
the, the
close.
up the upper
Right.
echelon of like people, like once, I want to be competing with people who are making like millions a year. Um, and that, it's kind of funny. So there was a guy uh that I was talking to, like, this was about 6 months ago, back when I was probably making like 6,000 a month then. He was like 19 years old and he was making like 30 grand a month. And he had like an agency, and I was like, oh my God, like my mind was just being stretched at the fact that this kid who was like, 6 years younger than me was making like six times what I was making. Um, and then it inspired me to, go higher. And then I'm sure I'll have that moment again.
Right. And one thing with that is like uh you only make how much you think you're worth, right? So if you think you're worth, you know, $50,000 a month, then you're gonna work to get there, right? Because you want to prove your ego, right? You want to prove that you are worth that 50, right? But if you think like, oh, I'm happy where I am, then you're gonna stay where you are, right? And it's the same thing with a lot of facets in life. And one thing that I want to go back to what you said is always having that learning and open mentality, right? A lot of
Yes.
people, they might get to a point and they feel like, oh yeah, I know it all. Like I have this base. Nobody can take it. Like the agency is the only way. Like for example, this is one thing I see a lot. Like the agency is the only way to go, right? Agency. SMMA, do social media, do Facebook ads and everything. And it's like they've closed off their mind to the possibility that there's so many other things that you can do, right? You can integrate the business in so many different ways to the point where you can help your clients, just an idea, right? Where you take them from the whole process of, getting somebody, just like say for like a roofing job, you get them clients for roofers literally to the appointment date, right? Like
Yeah.
everything you're speaking to them, and they're closed off to new ideas, right? And that's a point that I personally would never want to get to, right? Because I feel like, especially because I have this podcast, it's easy for me to say like, I'm always speaking to new people, so I'm
Yeah.
always getting these new perspectives.
Yeah.
So it is easy for me to say that I have a more like open mentality because I do have the opportunity to, but never close off your ideas, right? Like always hear out other people, and there's so many other avenues besides just the agency space, right?
Yes. Most of my like growth spurts I've noticed have come from like right after change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and this is a little bit counterintuitive to what you're saying, is a lot of people they'll be getting, they'll start to get that momentum going, and then they change something, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that can kill you as well, right? Because like if you have that momentum, that change can hurt you, right? Again, if you're stagnant and you feel like, oh, now I need to make a change, then like you're saying, that might be the right way to go, right?
Yeah. I have to I have to yell at my clients sometimes. Like um the ads will be going great, they're converting well, they're booking more, and they're like, hey, what if we change this? I'm like, dude, it's working. Please, let's not touch it.
Yeah,
Like, you're getting like a great ROAS, and I don't think we should. This is now is the
change.
time. Thing.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and this isn't like to like degrade the clients, right? But at at some point, it's like you're the one that knows, you have the expertise
Yeah,
behind
they haven't
ads.
done this for dozens and dozens of people like you have.
Exactly, right?
Um, so they haven't seen this. They think that, oh, it can keep going better and better, which, like, yes, it can, but like don't just get rid of what's working well.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. So you have to kind of you have to coach your clients, and you have to like coach people and tell them how to be good clients. Um,
Mhm.
and I like that is one of the things, like, my in the last year, like my agency confidence has just gone like much better.
Mhm.
More so in the past like 3 months, because like in the last couple months, like we really kind of started to figure it out. I don't want to say figure it out. Like we're still so young. Like I even hate saying that, but um like we've noticed growth basically. Um and like there have been many times on the phone that I've had to like talk to clients and be like, hey, listen, like this is how it's done. You need to do X, Y, and Z to get the results you want. Um,
Yeah.
like, just for example, like we had like a CRM that we made for this guy, and I'm like, hey man, like you're not tracking your leads. Like if you don't track your leads, you're not going to make as much money as the people that do. It's plain and simple. You're going to forget people. You're going to whatever. And like he wanted to do all of his estimates over the phone. And I was like, hey man, like you're asking for thousands of dollars. Like you should probably just go meet them in person. They're right down the road. Go look around their house. It was a painting company, and
Mhm.
shake their hand, talk to them. They will feel a lot more comfortable with you. And um, he or and it'll be a lot easier to ask for like 3, 4, $5,000. And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, you're not going to get as good results. And he didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
And sometimes, especially when you're first starting out, you have to take a client like that who isn't willing to grow, right? And then he'll complain when he doesn't see the results, right? But it's like, you're telling him to do that, right?
yeah.
Um, One thing that I wanted to say, and like you mentioned about confidence, right? And like, especially in the agency, I feel like in my personal experience, which obviously isn't very much because I'm still very young, but in my personal experience, you kind of get that confidence when you do it, right? So like if you like do have that one client and you do really well with them, you have the confidence that you can do that to someone else, right?
Yes.
And I guess in the same sense, that confidence can be taken away if you don't have the same performance that you had with that client, right? It's very stressful and almost like why isn't this working, right? Have you had an experience like that with like your agency?
Yes. So, that's another reason why we really like to stay kind of in the home service industry. We have clients outside of it, but like we're just not as good at those clients. Um, you know, once you've done something like, 30, 40, 50 times for a client, you know exactly what's going to happen. You see, you know the problems, you know the solutions, and you will be so much more confident. And also that'll come off to your clients. And they'll like you more, they'll stay longer, and they will also like, in sales calls, it'll help too. You say
Yeah.
like, um, I think I've gotten a lot better at articulating to clients in sales calls, telling them exactly what's expected of them and expected of us, the results they can expect. Like, I didn't have that information and I wasn't as good at saying it, 6 months, a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been going for a little bit over an hour now, I think. So I mean that's typically how long the podcast goes. So is there anything else that I guess you want to add on? Anything you want to say to the audience before we kind of close it out?
Okay. Um, well, I wanted to say this. You know, I'm still so early in this process, so I don't want to stand up here and pretend that like I know everything because that's definitely not the truth. Um, but some of the few things that I've learned along the way, um, educating yourself is so important. Focusing on, not just having some shiny object syndrome, focusing on what you actually want, committing to an idea. If you do that, eventually it will work. It might be a little bit different. You might have to pivot around, and it might be not exactly what you thought it would be, but yes, it will work. Stay focused, stay at it. There will be days where you hate everything. It's terrible. It's an awful day. Entrepreneurship is you will have the highest highs and the lowest lows. Um, but if you stay the course, you will get to the light at the end of the tunnel of what you're looking for.
It's a good message to close out on. Just so everyone knows, all of Caleb's socials will be in the description of this video. So you guys can go ahead and click on those links, check out some of his content, some of the other stuff that he has up. And yeah, thank you for coming on, Caleb. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Alex.